Hello, welcome to my channel. My name is Kendra, and today we're going to be doing a bookshelf makeover and participating in a collaboration doing stencils. So here we go. Okay, I'm outside working on this little piece that's going to go in my new craft cottage. Yes, you can see the rooftop of it back there. It's trying to focus on my finger. See it back there? Oh, look at the clouds. Looks like it's going to rain on me. I've got to get busy. Okay, so this was in it. It was just an extra piece that they left in there, and it's really cute. It's going to provide me with some awesome storage, but the top of it was empty. Don't mind my milk cartons. It was empty, open like this, like it's supposed to have something on top of it, or it goes on the ceiling. It would be kind of weird to have this up on the ceiling, maybe. I don't know. But regardless, I put some milk cartons in here because it's the right size, and I cut this little piece of wood. We bought a sheet of this to do another project, and it didn't take very much of it. And so these sheets of this little wood are not, you know, you get a big, huge sheet. Here's what I had left over from our mini projects for, I'm gonna say $10 or $12. So, you know, this probably cost me less than $1, maybe 50 cents. So I'm going to nail this down with my brad nailer to the top. I hope you can see it. And then I'm going to paint the whole thing white, just so I can have some nice, pretty storage in my craft room. No, it's not a craft room. It's my craft cottage. It's going to be beautiful. I'm going to do a whole series of videos or something to show how it all comes together. So stay tuned. Okay, I moved inside, and now I'm going to fill in that gap with some spackling, and I'm using my cake decorating spatula, and I'm just pressing it in there and smoothing it out. It's easy peasy. If you work with this a little bit wet, it works good. And then I'm just taking my sanding block and I'm just smoothing it out. And once you paint it, it looks great. Now I'm going to use all of these and test them out and see which one paints the best and which ones I like. We're going to start with this roller, and I got this at the Habitat for Humanity Restore for like $1 or $2, I can't remember. But I really don't like the finish that it leaves on it. It's kind of bubbly looking. So I'm going to try this sponge. Now I got this at Ace Hardware, so it's a little better quality than the ones that we get at Dollar Tree. The ones at Dollar Tree really are disposable, one-time use. This one feels like one you would wash out. However, I didn't really like it. It didn't get very good coverage. So now I'm going to use this paintbrush by Wiz. I think it came from, I want to say Ace Hardware as well. That's our hardware store on this side of town, and so I like it. It's giving me good coverage and doing way better. Now, this is like a little corner angle brush, and it works pretty good in that corner. It's really hard for me to see because I don't want to get my head in the camera, but I think it's working pretty good. It works really good in those little corners where it's hard to get the paintbrush without getting globs of paint. Now, down in there, it didn't work because I couldn't get enough paint. It just didn't work. But in those corners and on little detail areas, it's fantastic. In those little, yes, it's working great in those little areas. Now, this collab is hosted by Cee over at Cee J DIY, and co-hosting this time is Krista at Krista's Crafty Life and LaParsha at Creating It Myself. Now, I'm going to have their channels linked in the description box below. These three ladies are amazing crafters and creators, so check them out. Okay, this is all painted white. I got it all painted, and it's dried overnight, and now I'm gonna stencil. Now I'm gonna use a couple of different ways. I'm gonna use some stencil vinyl, and I cut this out on poster board from Dollar Tree, so it's a little bit thinner poster board, and I've used both of these methods before. But I also picked up some new sponges. Now, these are just regular makeup sponges that I get at Dollar General. I use those all the time. But I also got this at Dollar Tree. It's one of their little sponge pouncers. I've used theirs before. Little roller that I got at Dollar Tree. I've never used their rollers before. I've seen some crafters use their rollers. And I've never used this before. This is a bath sponge that I picked up at Dollar Tree. It feels really good. It's spongy. I'm going to cut it up. And I also picked these. This was a really good buy for these sponges if they work good for painting. And I thought I could use the yellow part possibly to sponge. So I'm going to get the stencil on first. Now, I used this previously to make a painting for my bathroom, which I absolutely love. And I probably should have shown it to you in this video. But I'm going to just remove this stencil vinyl off the backing. I've got my transfer paper on the front, tape on the front. And so this is going to be really sticky. And you can see that there's like an edge or a corner. So it's going to look like the flowers are kind of going off the edge. And so I'm going to try to get this. Yikes. It stuck before I wanted it to. So I'm going to try to get this over here and as even as possible. It doesn't really matter if it's too even as long as it's not too crooked, because it's supposed to look a little freestyle, like the flowers are just kind of flowing. So I'm going to do two of them. I'm going to do this one, then I'm going to do the one with the poster board. And I thought I was going to use a variety of sponges, but I ended up loving one and just kept using it. Now I'm going to rub this on here really good. I didn't really have to burnish it too much. It stayed on there really good. I'm sorry that my arms are in the way so much, but it was really kind of difficult to film this at a good angle. I guess I could have laid it down on its side and filmed it overhead, but it worked. You'll get the gist of it. Now I'm going to peel this off really slowly and gently so that all the little pieces stay on where it's supposed to. I also did myself a t-shirt with this, and I did the roses in the shape of the state of Texas. And I did the roses yellow, like the yellow rose of Texas. And so anyway, I did a t-shirt. I did iron-on vinyl and did a t-shirt. It's really cute. I get lots of compliments on it. Anyway, so this worked out good. So I mixed this paint because I didn't have any color that I really wanted. And so I mixed it up in this little jar. And then I'm going to use that light pink. And then on the green parts, I'm going to use the Waverly Moss and Celery. I'm about to show you those. Yeah, I'm going to use those two for the leaves. And now I'm going to cut this sponge up. It cut really easy. It is so soft. I really would like to use this in the shower, I think. And so I cut a big piece of it, and it worked really good. Now, I really wanted this not to necessarily be full coverage and to have a little, you know, kind of spongy look almost. And so I used that Dollar Tree Pouncer on top with the lighter pink to give it some, I wanted some shading, a little bit of, you know, I didn't want it to be all flat, one color. So then if you get too much, you just go back in with the darker color. And I'm trying to be oh so careful with this sponge, not to get it where it's supposed to be green, acting like I'm a professional. No, I'm not. I had to go back over I got on the green, I had to go over it with the green, then I had to go back over it with the pink. So I ended up finally realizing I needed to either use a piece of paper or tape it off. Because, yeah, that was just a nice thought that I thought I could do that, but I couldn't. So, yeah, I don't know why I did each flower individually. I'm sorry that you're seeing my arms flapping when I'm shaking it there, but that's what happens when you get old lady arms. Actually, it's not true. It's like if you ever have kept your arms in shape and you never let them get in that shape, then you probably won't have that when you're an old lady. But I just never had firm arms even when I was young. So anyway, that's TMI. Sorry. So I'm going to use the edge of that sponge to kind of blend it a little more because there's not any paint on it. And yeah, it turns out good. So I started using this sponge regular size, then I decided to cut it in half, and it worked way better because I really only needed a tiny little piece. And then I'm going to use that celery just on the tops. So my grandmother, we called her Mama, and her birthday was 2/2/22, which was a very cool birthday. So she would have been 100 if she had still been alive. But she lived to be in her 90s. She was an artist, a very awesome artist. I'll show you guys some of her paintings someday in a video. But she taught me that you put the light colors where the light would reflect on it. So where you would see the reflection of the light. And so that's a good way to know where you need to put the light, where the lighter colors need to go. So I'm not as good at that as she was, but she did teach me a lot, and I'm very, very grateful for that. I had amazing, awesome grandmothers. That was my mom's mom, and my dad's mom was an excellent cook, and I was up underneath her feet all the time because my mom worked and she kept me. And so that grandmother taught me how to cook. My other grandmother taught me art and sewing, and just I had the best of all the worlds with my grandmothers. My mom was awesome too. I don't want to say she didn't teach me anything, because she taught me a lot. But anyway, here we go. The peel and reveal. And look, it's really nice and crisp. I love that. But what I didn't do was leave out that bottom piece that has only half a rose. I meant to not stencil that on there. So, you know, what we do when we craft, we just fix our boo-boos. And so I just decide that I'm going to kind of make another half to it. It kind of looks weird when I get done, but I don't think, if you didn't know, and I'm just showing you that I'm using a smaller piece of that sponge. I cut a smaller piece. I think if you didn't know, you probably wouldn't be able to tell. And I did go back in with a smaller paintbrush and kind of work out some of those little crooked places in there. But I think it turned out fine. This poster board does bleed a little more. You can see the little crooked line across the middle. I did go in with a small paintbrush and fix that. You can see it in this shot. You can tell if you look at it. Now, when you're using paper or poster board, you have to press down on it when you're pouncing. Like you'll see in just a second when I take that up. I'm gonna press down on those pieces. I'm using that paper so I don't get it, that pink on my, or that mauve on my green leaf. But see, as I'm pressing that down, I'm lifting straight up. That one's pretty close, but that big one up on the right, it is pretty loose, so you have to really press it down. And I ended up with paint all over my fingernails, but I'm gonna get them done tomorrow, and it's pretty close to the same color as my polish, so it didn't really matter. It'll wash off. And it did bleed a little bit more, but you know what? This is going in my craft cottage when I get it all finished and ready to move into. And honestly, there's going to be so much stuff in there, you probably will not even see these flowers. But I wanted to do this for a video because I wanted to participate in this collaboration, because I love Cee over at Cee J DIY. She has been so amazing. I haven't really gotten to know the other two the co-hosts that well. I'm looking forward to getting to know them, but I really wanted to be a part of this challenge, and I thought, well, this is a good blank space, and I love this stencil so much. Like I said, I used it on a t-shirt. I used it on a painting in my bathroom, and so I thought, well, I wanted to use some different sponging techniques, but I just fell in love with that big bath sponge, and I just used it. But I do want to show you that you can use paper, and if you want to do a rustic look and you want to just use the paper, now you can see that I'm holding it down with my fingers. See how I'm really holding that down with my fingers and just going around there so it doesn't bleed. You're going to get a little more bleeding with this, obviously, because it's not pressed down on the surface like the vinyl is. But I think this would be really, and I've done this before, when you use the paper and then you have a little bit of that bleeding, and then you sand it to get more of a rustic look, then that bleeding kind of goes away, or it just makes it look more rustic. So here I'm just adding that little tap of white, lighter pink at the top of the flowers, and that's what I did with the green. I did the darker at the bottom and the lighter at the top And the green wasn't quite as dimensional as I would have liked. The colors were pretty close to the same. And the green was, the little leaves were so tiny. But anyway, just a couple different techniques of stenciling so you can kind of see. And I'm showing you my fingernails and that I had to hold it really closely. So that, I'm going to show you this one right here. I had more bleeding and the paper stuck a little bit. But I'm going to take a small paintbrush with some white paint and just fill in those lines. And it turns out really pretty. I mean, it looks great. You can't really even tell that there was bleeding. And unless you look really close, you can't tell. On that one at the bottom right, oh here, I'm sorry, I've got my head all up in the camera. But I wanted to put one extra little, I cut that out, and I wanted to put one extra little flower down there, and it made a mess. But I did go in with my paintbrush and clean it up. And here's the final reveal, and I think it turned out really pretty. I put it there and I was like, I should have done strawberries and had that in my strawberry kitchen. If you haven't seen my video with all my strawberries in the kitchen, I'll link that in the description box below. So you can watch that and see that as well. But I had so much fun doing this, and I hope you enjoyed it, and be sure to check out the playlist below.